Good morning from Dallas. It's early in the morning here, and I'm with Tamara Tirják, independent localization consultant. Tamara, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit better for our audience? And we're going to be talking about why localization leadership is harder than it looks this morning. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, Stefan. Hello, everyone. I'm hailing from not so sunny Cambridge in the UK today. So my name is Tamara Tirják, currently independent localization consultant, helping enterprise localization programs if they need an extra boost with their strategy, technology, or people management challenges. Until recently, I was leading the localization program at Frontier Developments, a video game publisher here in Cambridge.
Awesome. There's a lot of demand for that kind of service at this moment. Lots of people looking for answers. Let's dig right in. Why do you think localization teams so often struggle to explain their value internally, even when they're doing excellent work?
Honestly, I think it's exactly because, as you say, they are doing excellent localization work. But when you run a localization program, then the value does not come from doing localization extremely well, but it comes from plugging that excellence into all the surrounding team. I like to think of it as the localization spider. You can be a very beautiful, pretty little spider, but on your own, it's not a very successful existence for a spider. You need to create a web, understanding what's going on where, and immediately jump on things when they arise. So that's my localization spider approach, and I think that's where localization excellence comes from, not necessarily on focusing the localization quality and doing localization well in a traditional sense of the word.
Yeah, localization is one of these fields that means different things in different companies, and all kinds of other things get involved. What kind of decisions land on a localization lead that no one trained them for in particular, you think?
Oh, 100%. That's why I love talking about my fellow localization program managers, because localization programs come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. There is no one way of this is how you run your program. It really depends, as you say, the company, the location, the profile, the culture, so many things that we need to adapt our program to. So the decisions, yes, absolutely. So localization leaders normally come into this role from a linguistic background, maybe from an LSP, so they have some project management and coordination experience, but nobody could have ever prepared them to make all the technical decisions about tooling and technology rollout, about staffing and people management, about getting involved in a business decision. So many different things that a language professional is not trained in most university programs to handle. The other interesting aspect is if somebody comes into localization from a very different field, a different background, a marketer or a project manager, a producer coming into picking up this localization thing, whatever that might mean. So they normally have some really interesting approaches. But again, nobody prepared them to make the localization specific decisions. So it's an intense learning experience, and I love it. This journey is just magical, and I love being there for people on this journey.
One of the most important things that you stress on is the importance of setting goals. How does ambiguity around goals quietly drain teams, you think?
Have you recently traveled with a toddler? Like a long car ride from
It's
home
been a while.
After about 5 minutes,
Are we there yet?
Are we there yet? Exactly. Why are we stopping? Why are we not going? Why? What's going on? So this is pretty much what happens in a localization team if the goals are ambiguous, if they are not set clearly, that this is where we're going, this is how we can get there, then they will end up confused and asking, but where are we going? Why are we doing this? What's the point? Why aren't things happening? Where are they blocked? So they just keep on draining their energy on these questions rather than staring out the window and enjoying the ride.
Planning is so important. I agree with you there. Why do so many leaders hear the word strategy and tune out? It's something that's dreaded and avoided if possible. Why do you think that happens?
So there are two aspects to this. When we hear about strategy, a strategy that our higher ups are throwing at us, so to say, then they often feel very lofty and vague with very little connection to the day-to-day realities that we know, that we're exposed to. So it's hard to get aligned to those and figuring out how to get there, how to help them get there. The second aspect is localization. Being a downstream department, we're always busy picking up other people's work whenever it hits us. So I think localization leaders often feel that they just don't have time to sit down and think about the big picture, think about why are we doing this, where do we want to go, how do we want to improve things, because we're just too busy with day-to-day production and churning out content in a gazillion languages.
Yeah, I was just talking to an engineer last week, and the answer I got from him was that the problem with engineering is that engineers get tickets. They're not really meant to be involved with some of the strategy because they're not part of a particular strategic bigger group often, and that kind of rang through, I think, or rings through for localization people as well. What does a bad localization goal look like in practice, Tamara?
They say that happy families are all happy the same way, but unhappy families are all unhappy in their own way. So we kind of have an idea of what good localization goals look like, but bad come in many shapes and forms. Oh, I've been there myself, and I have made those mistakes as well. So one thing is, if localization goals are not aligned to company goals, so that creates conflict with stakeholders, causing blockers further down the line because they just don't want to help us achieve things that are not in the company's interest, obviously. So for example, if we want to grow the localization team and we have these big ambitions, when the company is currently focusing on consolidating or streamlining operations, doing more with less. Second, if the goal is unachievable, so it's pointless and demotivating to aim for perfection, 99.99% localization quality. We're never going to hit, and it's just going to demotivate everybody involved. One of the things that we tend to get wrong so many times is if we set out goals which are outside our control to hit. We want 25% more budget. Are we the ones in control of that? We can put forward a business case, but we are not the ones approving the budget. No buy-in from team members can also result in sabotaging from within the team if people are not on board with achieving the goal because they don't think it will benefit them in any way. Are we there yet? Phenomenon. So if we can't measure it, if we don't know whether we're there yet, and let's improve our efficiency. Okay, what is efficiency? How much do we want to improve?
Are there any tools that you use to do your planning in real world localization world, and how do you adapt them for localization? Because I don't think maybe there are specialized tools. You tell me.
If there are specialized tools, I haven't come across with those.
I'm happy that I didn't.
Phew, okay. Now, most standard planning goals are really well applicable to localization scenarios. The one thing that can be different from us to, let's say, a product manager who is planning a go-to-market plan is, as I mentioned, we are downstream, so we do have to adapt to the realities and the intentions of upstream teams. So we're kind of on the receiving end, and even in this scenario, we need to find areas where we are in control, but still taking into account that things might happen upstream that we need to adapt to. So flexibility, adaptability is key when we set our localization goals and plan around the delivery milestones so that we have the bandwidth to work on hitting those goals.
Yeah. You have a workshop, of course, that handles all the issues that we're talking about this morning. Why is it so hard for localization leaders to step back and plan? And what's your strategy to make them plan?
The challenge there is, as I mentioned, is getting swept up in day-to-day firefighting. So I studied management at university. So management starts with planning, then organizing, leading, and controlling. So these are the 4 functions of management. What project managers, localization managers often start to do is focus on organizing, is coordination, is getting work done. And that's huge, that's insanely difficult, and it's amazing that they are able to do that. But it all starts with planning and having that plan in place. My planning strategy is silver star stickers. Every single time, that works for hitting those goals.
Okay, good. And of course, nowadays, Gen AI distorts the value of the conversation inside companies a little bit. How is it affecting your modus operandi, Tamara?
So Gen AI is definitely disruptive. And how I see that is it depends on how localization programs have positioned themselves and their value within their organizations. So those programs who have positioned themselves as we are very efficient and effective in converting content from one language to another, and we do that to a very good linguistic quality and on time. Those are the areas where Gen AI can challenge this value proposition. Those teams, however, who were more strategically focused already, focusing on business, on customer perception and providing value to the end users, there I feel that their position is less challenged by Gen AI. Yes, they will definitely be asked, so what are we going to do about this? How are we going to use it to our benefit? But it will be asking the same team rather than considering replacing the team.
Yeah. Where does negotiation play a role in goal setting, and should we be negotiating with outside teams about our localization goals?
Yes, so alignment is key. Localization does not exist in isolation. Hello, localization spider. We are connected. So definitely, I always negotiate with stakeholders. So, for example, back at Frontier, I was part of the production team on the same level as all the game producers, and that was an excellent place to be, to have those conversations, so that what we do in localization actually helps making the games. The other side of negotiation is with team members, because they also have to be on board. They have to feel that the goals are worthy to pursue. So for that, what I always did is every year I run a survey where I ask the team members what they perceive to be the biggest problem. Because as a leader of a team of 12 people, I was a bit further removed from day-to-day production, so I didn't necessarily have that oversight. The Toyota kata calls this the Gemba walks, where managers are asked to walk on the shop floor. So that's what I also made myself to do, is to make sure that I understand what are the things that the people are challenged with, and then I could help them propose a solution, set that as a strategy, and then they understood the value and they saw that it was coming from them.
It definitely seems like you're looking for buy-in from the entire team. What changes when teams help define their own objectives, you think?
So they will be definitely more willing to put in effort and energy to work towards those goals, because it's coming from them. They are the ones feeling the pain. So they are the ones seeking to get that relief in the end. They are also more engaged with the whole process by providing feedback about what's working, what's not working. And if they are engaged with reaching the goal, it's easier to squeeze time in to work on that goal with the day-to-day business of production.
Yeah. What's your strategy to make sure that the team is understanding the goal very clearly? And what does a fragile goal look like in localization, in your opinion?
So a fragile goal is any that doesn't take into account the realities of the team and results in resistance and sabotage. So when working towards any big goal, I make sure to continuously communicate and give updates about where we're at. Is it blocked? What is needed from the team at the moment? So constant communication is key. And also, what makes a goal fragile is if it doesn't take into account the day-to-day realities of production, because things can change, pipelines can change, other teams are also moving fast, and that can definitely impact the team's focus and availability to work on goals.
Is there a way that leadership behavior can unintentionally increase the stress level in the team, in your experience?
Yes, there are many ways, and I think that's why us leaders are so keen to continuously work on ourselves and improve. One of the things that have made a huge difference in my own leadership experience and practice was when I stopped giving signals to my team that I was busy. We tend to do that because we feel that by being busy we are valuable and we are useful, so we want to give this impression that we are doing a lot of work. But by giving the impression that we are busy, we are setting this expectation to the team that everybody is expected to be super busy all the time, and two, we create blocks or walls around us so they don't want to bother us with quote-unquote insignificant questions, because they feel that would bother us, and that means that important conversations do not happen, important concerns, for example, about reaching goals, they do not happen.
Yeah, and what signals tell you that a team is nearing burnout, or what signals tell you that everything is hunky-dory and the machine's humming just right?
What definitely screams burnout to me is when people are too busy to talk about how busy they are. So what I mean is I have my regular schedule one-on-ones with people, and when they say, can we postpone, can we cancel, can we skip this one, that means they don't even have time to talk about how busy they are and how much they need help. So that's definitely one of the big signals for me. If they are not that obvious about it, then I have my coaching toolkit, a series of questions that I can ask, which really helps me gauge and understand where they are in that flow of abilities versus the difficulty of the task. If you're familiar with Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi's flow model, and
as the leader of a localization team, do you think you should be having one-on-ones regularly with your team and asking those? What are some of those questions? I'd be interested from a leadership point of view, what some of the questions should be that I should be asking my team, for example, that could keep my finger on the pulse. What advice can you give me?
One of my favorite, kind of surprising question, but I think after a while my team got used to it, is what's on your mind? Because it's the most open question I can imagine.
That's good.
Yeah. And then just let them speak whatever is really on their minds, whatever is bothering them, whatever keeps them awake at night. Sometimes they talk about home situation, and that's always useful to understand for a leader. Then once I have an idea, then I can narrow down. So what is the biggest challenge right now for you? And that's super focused, so I understand what's going on, and then we can talk about how big of a challenge that is, and then of course, so what can I do to help you with that?
Yeah. How do we get our teams to be more resilient, and how does that show up in day-to-day decisions, you believe?
Resilience is a tricky one, because resilience is a skill that can be built and practiced. And it's painful, because what does resilience mean? It means falling on your face again and again and getting up again and again. And we don't like falling, we don't like failing, we don't like making mistakes. So it's not a fun skill to practice. But at the end of the day, by building up this practice, this confidence in ourselves that even if we fall on our face flat, we are able to get up and change course. that gives us courage and confidence to proceed with the decisions, because we know that, well, if we make a mistake, we just get up, move on, change course, and we've learned something.
There is no growth without pain. Would you agree with that statement?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Why do you believe resilience is a leadership skill and not a personality trait?
Because it can be learned, it can be practiced, and it can be improved. This comes down to growth mindset versus fixed mindset. Fixed mindset, I cannot be taller than, what am I, 5'6", 7"? That's fixed. I can't change that. No reason to talk about resilience there. But in terms of public speaking skills, in terms of speaking up in a meeting where I'm the only woman and I'm the only one who's not a native speaker of English, that's also part of resilience, to work up that courage. And yes, there are a couple of silly things, but
I'm just sitting here thinking, isn't discipline a really important part of this as well? Sometimes if I project that back to my life, and I've been a marathon runner, for example, for my whole life, the goal that seems really far out there and really challenging becomes a lot more accessible if you start chipping away at it bit by bit, but that requires discipline and dedication on a daily basis. So if you want to become a good runner, to make that analogy, and run long distances, get comfortable with that, you start by doing short distances and then, doing it on a regular basis so your body gets used to that. Is that too oversimplified to draw it back to localization in that sense, or do you think there's a similarity in the way you teach your teams how to be more resilient and achieve bigger goals along the way?
I think that's actually a very helpful analogy. I'm a runner myself. I haven't yet gone beyond 10K.
Okay.
It's a progress. Yes. So there are a couple of things about discipline, and I'm really happy that you said that word, because discipline is indeed very important. And there are a couple of elements to discipline, the way I say it. So discipline is about making a conscious decision to show up, because we only have 24 hours a day, and we have X number of years in our lives. It's finite. So it's our decision what we want to do with that time. So part of discipline is deciding, I'm going to dedicate this much time to achieving this goal because this is important for me. It is very important to be rewarded regularly after hitting milestones. So when I was pushing myself to hit the 10K, I had the earlier goals, like I will hit 5K this month. And if I do, I'm going to buy new running gear. And then that will keep me even more motivated to show up and work up to 10K. So rewards are very important, in my opinion. And so what I like to do is 30-day challenges, which keep you hyper-focused pretty much on one thing. So if we talk about running for 30 days, every single day I will run a little bit. Because I feel it's very difficult to commit to a goal that's very far ahead, like going from 0 to a marathon. It's impossible to perceive how long it takes to get there and how much work it takes to get there. I don't know if I like running at all. I don't know if it will make me feel better. So by having that 30 days very focused practice, it really helped me gauge whether this is something for me, but also to really understand the value of that practice, what it brings to my fitness, my vitality, if you talk about running, or if you talk about localization goals, then does it help me become better organized or more assertive? We had assertiveness challenges within the team. So we had like a focused 30 days of, I will do this and this and this to help me build my assertiveness. And then after the end of the month, we just sat down and started discussing, so how do you feel? Is that working for you? What can we do next month to improve this practice and then get you further to to your assertiveness goal. Assertiveness marathon. Ooh.
Yeah, that's a key term. I was going to ask you, one of the most challenging aspects of being a manager for me in the past has been figuring out what to delegate, what to take ownership of, and letting go of things. A lot of times managers are people that shine in their position and get promoted that way. That makes them very, very peculiar about the way they do things, and that's maybe the most difficult aspect for a manager, to let go of something. What's the difference between task delegation and ownership delegation, and how do you balance that properly in your managerial skill set?
Yep, that was definitely a learning journey for me as well. I remember having had conversations with my direct report, and she was telling me, "You micromanage too much." And then we spent weeks and months drilling deep into, so why am I micromanaging? How can we move away from me having to micromanage her? So it was a really fun growing together practice. So task delegation, you mentioned, is probably more straightforward because you're delegating a process. It's a set process with set process steps that people follow, and then they will get the expected results. Delegating an ownership means that you delegate the outcome and you let people just run with it and get there however they want. And it's a tricky one because people are different. How they like to be delegated to is different. Delegation also has a bunch of requirements, like you need to delegate tasks that the other person is capable of doing. They can pick it up, they have time, they want to do it. So there are a lot of requirements. So we need to understand what's blocking us from delegation or what's helping us with delegation. And where was I going with this? So one period in my life, I'm a control freak by nature, so yes, I also had micromanagement issues to deal with. And a period in my life that really helped me let go of control freakness was when I had my son. So I was at home with a baby. We live abroad, so family wasn't there to help. But when somebody was there to help, I just let go of, this is not how it should be cleaned, that's not how the clothes should be folded. It's like, any help is welcome, so I can focus on what's important for me right now. So I think that's what it comes down to, is focus on getting that help and getting the help that you need.
Yeah. When you're evaluating the people that are on your team, how do you help people grow without pushing them into failure? How do you deal with that balance, Tamara?
So I've already mentioned my little coaching toolbox and keeping people in their little flow zone. I get it wrong every now and then. Who doesn't? The important thing is to understand when the expectation is too high for someone to hit, and there is nothing wrong with that. People are in a certain part in their career journey, so a junior person cannot be expected to deliver complex, innovative tasks because they just can't. So if I realize that they are set up for failure because the task is just too complex for them to deliver, then firefight. So need to make sure that the task gets delivered, for example, by either jumping in or bringing in another senior to help them, but also to frame it in a way that it doesn't feel like a failure for them, to make sure that they understand that the expectation was unreasonable for where you are right now. And by the way, you're doing amazing work on all these other things that you're doing.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. I think for me, giving people delegating responsibility has also been something that's happened ad hoc at times where it wasn't maybe planned, and by necessity somebody did something that they weren't doing before, and maybe grew in the process. But a lot of times teams have to scale beyond what they originally looked like. What's maybe a mistake that leaders make when scaling teams, and what would you recommend to look out for in that regard? And that could maybe be the question that we end our conversation on this morning.
So during my journey with Frontier, I've been there for 10 years. I built up the localization team from being a one-person department to a team of 10. So I've had my fair share of scaling the team. And what I focused on was to hire people not necessarily on their individual skills and competency, but how they would fit within the tapestry, the dynamics of the existing team. And I had a team where the individuals were vastly different in terms of skills, aspirations, personalities, background, but somehow it just all worked, it all clicked. So this is one thing, and the other is when scaling, we often look at the current situation that we want to scale up to hit, and we fail to consider where the company is heading, where the team is heading, what will be the future challenges that we need to scale up to, and how to ensure that, for example, we always have enough juniors in the team who can work with the junior tasks and work up their skills and move on, and you don't have your seniors doing, for example, relaying marketing work that a junior can do.
Yeah. Tamara, thank you so very much for sitting down with us this morning and giving us a little preview of the content you'll be talking about in your workshop. I really think it's super important stuff and super helpful for localization leaders like myself to pause and think about how to get better organized and get better results from their teams. Thank you very much, and I wish you a wonderful afternoon in England, and until we meet again.
Thank you very much for the lovely conversation. I definitely enjoyed exploring this topic that's very close to my heart.
Thank you, Tamara.
Thank you.